Okay, everyone, we're back and ready to roll. And so we're rolling along with agenda item 45. Okay. For possible action, any items from the 11 a.m. session that the council staff and/or applicant wish to be stricken, tabled, withdrawn, or held in abeyance for a future meeting may be brought forward and acted upon at this time. So Mayor Pro Tem, you're back on board.
Right. Mayor, the following items have been requested to be held in abeyance, withdrawn, or stricken. Items 51 to 55, GPA 75219, ZON 75220, VAR 75221, VAC 75222, and TMP 75223. The applicant is Dr. Horton Incorporated. The owner is Alexandra Barbier Living Trust on 5.00 acres at the southwest corner of Centennial Parkway and Jensen Street. A request by the applicant has been made to obey to 6/19/2019. Items number 66 to 73, GPA 75997, ZON 75998, SUP 75999, SUP 76000, SDR 76002, TMP 76001, ZON 76145, and TMP 76004. The applicant owner is TP 1000 LLC at the southeast corner of Elkhorn Road and Wallapai Way and the southwest corner of Elkhorn Road and Eula Street. And the Councilwoman Fiore has requested an abeyance to 6/19/2019. And items numbers 74, 77, ZON 75980, VAR 75981, VAC 75983, and TMP 75984. The applicant is Dr. Horton. The owner is 1997 Morton M.F. Wong and Eunice Elizabeth Wong Revocable Trust on 5.09 acres on the north side of Deer Springs Way, approximately 300 feet east of Wallapai Way, and generally located on the north side of Deer Springs Way, east of Wallapai Way. And the request has been made by the applicant to withdraw without prejudice. Item number 81, ROC 76347. The applicant is Raphael Shaker. The owner is the RZMZ Family LLC, Series 2, on 0.19 acres at 1801 East Charleston Boulevard. A request has been made by the applicant to obey to 6/19/2019. And Mayor, I move that these requests be granted.
Thank you. There's a motion. Please vote. And please post. Those motions carry, and we will move on to agenda item 46. Public hearing and discussion for possible action regarding a nuisance notice and order for failed inspection fees of $1,170 and assessed daily civil penalties up to $99,500 to authorize the recording of a lien against property located 1325 Pyramid Drive. Property owner, Oswaldo Carrillo, and this is in Ward 5 with Councilman Creer. This is a public hearing which I declare open, and I see lovely Mrs. Zuno. So will you announce yourself and go forth?
Good morning, Madam Mayor and City Council. Vicky Ozuna, Code Enforcement Section Manager. The item before you today is regarding a request for approval to assess civil penalties for illegal short-term rental activity regarding the property located at 1325 Pyramid Drive. Code Enforcement received a complaint on September 18, 2017. Staff monitored this property for short-term rental activity, and on October 5, 2017, as a result of verifying the activity, a notice and order was issued to the property owner, Oswaldo Correa. Is that correct? Okay. On August 2018, Code Enforcement requested a search warrant from all rental platforms. Airbnb was the specific one, from the City Attorney's Office. The warrant was approved and sent to the platform, and data and information was returned on April 2nd, 2019. Findings from our review of the data were that the owner had rented out the property for 199 days after the notice and order advising them to cease the activity had occurred. The revenue from this activity totaled $110,892, and our findings also verified that there were 83 days of rental activity that occurred before the issuance of the notice and order. The total of that revenue was $34,772. Our findings, I'm asking you today for your approval of assessment of $1,020 for inspection fees that code enforcement has expended in checking the property, and $99,500 in civil penalties, for a total of $100,520 to be recorded as a lien against the property.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Agenda item 46.
That will be me, ma'am. That's my time. That will be me.
Okay, please announce your name,
My name is Oswaldo Carrillo,
please.
and yes, I was renting this property. I did try to obtain a license. Sorry, I'm new at this, and I don't remember the time frames and stuff, but I tried to obtain a license to do this the right way. And in doing so, I was under the impression, they told me that I couldn't get it because there was another property that was within 600 feet of mine. So as far as I understood is, the alternative was for me to have someone living at the house for safety purposes to watch over the property. So I did have my mother living at the property. I thought that was gonna make it right. So apparently it didn't make it right. After I spoke to Anthony from the city, that's when I ceased and desist, and I canceled everything with the Airbnb. I have no interest of doing that. And honestly, I did it because I was getting squatters and people breaking into the house, and I thought it was just better. And I am guilty, obviously. Like I said, it was just a misunderstanding. And at this point, I have no interest of doing that. In fact, I'll just sell the house if I have to. I just want to remedy the situation, basically.
Thank you. Do we have a map of how close is the other short-term rental that was licensed?
I do not have a map.
It is 567 feet,
Yes.
so it's almost
Do you know
there.
which address it was? Do you know which address?
Do you want to come on up and announce your name and then respond if you would, please? Thank you.
Morning, Council. Anthony Krieg, City of Las Vegas Code Enforcement. I believe that licensed short-term rental was approximately 500 feet. It wasn't on Pyramid Drive, but it was around the corner on the next street.
Okay. And that's operating according to the codes and regulations?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else public hearing? I'm going to close public hearing and turn this over to Councilman Creer. Closing public comment, Councilman Creer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, we get a lot of people that get noticed, and they've been, Vicki, how many notices were sent out? And when did they start?
The official notice and order was issued October 5th, 2017. Unfortunately, this case did take us a while to track down the activity after we issued the notice and order, before we felt that we had enough to ask for a search warrant. And we asked for the search warrant, I believe it was in...
I saw the April 2nd of 2019.
Yeah, that's when we received it, but I believe we asked for it in August of 2018, and for whatever reason, it took a long time for the platform to respond to us. So we didn't get it back until April of this year. I know that Officer Krieg and when the supervisors had conversation with the owner, explaining to him that, you know, we were going after a search warrant and that this activity needed to cease, and I don't think that was adhered to.
Okay, and so originally it got turned down at city, the license got not approved when? Was that a planning commission, or is that?
No, a license was never applied for on this
Right,
property.
There was.
but he said he came and got denied.
Sir, I did apply for the license.
Excuse me one second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So he came in and got denied from council or got denied from business license?
I would have to, I don't know what the history on any of
Okay.
previous licensors,
Okay, but-
but
Right, but he was noticed
he would
that
have
he didn't
had to
get the
put in for an
license.
SUP.
He was given another notice on October 17 that sort of a cease and desist.
Correct. It's an-
Okay.
Yeah.
To stop renting in 17. You continued to rent the house. You literally rented the house to the tune of $110,892 worth of revenue. That's like a lot of rentals. That's not just, hey, I rented one or two times after and then I stopped. That is a lot of revenue that you generated at, if you look at, I don't know what it costs, $200 a night on average, let's say. That's a lot of nights. That adds up to $110,000 in revenue. So that means that you knew what you were doing. You owe the city estimated 13% room tax of $18,936, and he hasn't paid any room tax?
That is considered the room tax, but that's a separate item. It's not included in this.
Yes, I realize that.
Yeah.
Right. So you were operating a business. I have two businesses. I pay my taxes. I pay my business license fees. I operate. I pay whatever is due. I pay due. So you operated your organization to the tune of $110,000 in revenue. You haven't paid $18,936.32 in taxes. You did not cease and desist and stop renting your facility. You called my office this morning saying that you've been out of the country or you didn't know what's going on, all these things, but now you're here, which is fine. It just seems as though you knew what you were doing and you continue to do it.
Sorry, I called your office this morning? Is that what you're saying?
Is that
Excuse
not
me,
valid?
Councilman
Oh, maybe
Carrera.
that's somebody.
That's the next,
The next person.
item, yes.
My apologies. Lo siento. And so I don't quite understand why we would
Well, like I said, sir-
mitigate these fees, or why we would not move forward with establishing these liens when you have,
If I may?
hold on, you have disregarded all the notices that were given. If you don't have a business license, you can't operate a business.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Like I said, when I applied for the license and the gentleman there explained to me as far as the other property that was there and I couldn't operate in that way, it was my understanding, as he stated, this was rather new, I guess, so they stated that if I had somebody living there to watch over the property to where I wouldn't be renting out the whole house if I had somebody living there. That's why I had my mother relocate there to the property, so she was there when the property was being rented. Now I understand that wasn't even part of it. So that was my misunderstanding, I believe. So it's not that I kept on renting it, not knowing, basically. It was just a misunderstanding on my part. Like I said, I am guilty of having rented the house. It's just that I thought that I was doing it based on what they had informed me of.
Okay. And today, we are not here to discuss if we are going to mitigate those fees or not. Today, we're here to establish if we're going to move forward with the process to establish these liens on the property, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we aren't here to discuss, you are going to be liened because you need to be held accountable for it. Now,
Understand.
you might want to talk to Vicki about how you come back and maybe mitigate those costs, but today, I'm going to make, unless there's no other discussion, make a motion for approval to move forward with item 46.
So that's your motion?
Yes.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem would like you to repeat your motion.
Thank you. I just said I'm going to make a motion to approve item 46 and move forward with establishing a lien against the property.
Okay. Please post. And that motion carries. So you have the lien. You will need to speak with Ms. Azuna about how you proceed from here. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 47. Public hearing and discussion for possible action regarding a nuisance notice and order for failed inspection. Fees of $4,320 assessed daily civil penalties up to $29,500, and authorize the recording of a lien against property located 3808 Fairway Circle, property owner Glish Irrevocable Land Trust, also in Ward 5, Councilman Creer. This is a public hearing which I declare open.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and City Council. Vicky Ozuna, Code Enforcement Section Manager. The item before you today is regarding short-term rental illegal activity regarding the property located at 3808 Fairway Circle. This property has a history with the City of Las Vegas as it was previously approved for use as an owner-occupied short-term rental. This property at the time was owned by Alana Gutman, who is the current owner under Glish Irrevocable Land Trust. A conditional use verification for short-term rental was applied for in September 20th, 2017, under application CUV 71692, and was approved by planning on October 19th, 2017. Business license issued a license for this activity on October 31st, 2017 for a short-term rental that required owner occupancy due to numerous violations and verified complaints of party activity. Business license revoked the license on May 22nd, 2018. Code enforcement received a complaint from the citizens in the area about, on May 25th, 2018, staff monitored the property for short-term rental activity, and on December 19th, 2019, as a result of verifying activity, the notice and order was issued on December 19th, 2018. In February, Code enforcement requested a search warrant for the rental platforms of Airbnb and HomeAway from the City Attorney's Office. The warrants were approved and sent to both platforms. Data and information were returned from both platforms in March of 2019. Our findings from the review of the data were that the owners had rented their property for 57 days through both platforms after the notice and order advising them to cease the activity had occurred. Our findings also verified that there were 80 days of rental activity that occurred after the revocation of their license, but before the issuance of the notice and order to cease the activity. I'm asking you today for your approval of assessment of $4,320 for inspections that were completed as a result of the activity on this property, and $28,500 in civil penalties for a total of $32,820 to be recorded as a lien against the property.
Thank you. And sir, do you want to give us
Yes,
your name?
Joseph Gutman for Glish Trust.
Okay, you represent the trust?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm one of the trustees.
Okay.
And I'm here on the advice of my attorney. This hearing was brought to our attention only last night, since we were out of the country. Both trustees were out of the country. I got proof here if it's necessary to show. And there's a pending litigation, as probably all of you are aware of, which each one on this panel, including Ms. Ozuna, were served prior to the issuance of that hearing. We would request that item to be tabled for a couple of weeks so the attorneys can square it out. And I'm here just to show that we are here, and that's it.
Thank you. It is a public hearing. Is anyone here who'd like to speak on this agenda item 47? Okay, I'm closing public hearing. We'll turn this over to you, Councilman Creer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Zuna, just for clarity for timeline, a notice and orders issued back in 2018, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so the applicant was given a notice, there was no response, there was no, from that?
Did you have any response? I'm unaware of any response, but I'm going to let Anthony Krieg answer that, as he's the officer that works the case.
Thank you.
And if you'll announce yourself again, please.
Officer Krieg, City of Las Vegas Code Enforcement. So the initial notice and order would have been posted on the property, it was, I believe, in the fall of last year, 2018. So it would have been December 19th of 2018. Several months previous to that time, I'd been monitoring the property because the owners had told me they were living at the house, but the neighbors were calling and saying that the short-term rental activity was continuing. So in December of 2018 is when I verified that the listings were active once again, and they were allowing the booking of short-term rentals. That's when the notice and order was initiated and posted on the property, December 2018.
Thank you.
The conversation occurred about a week later, late December, with Mr. Gutman here, and he told me that he was going to send me a lease agreement, a 30-day lease agreement, which he did a few days later.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Fiore, comments, please?
Thank you. Officer Anthony, how do you notice folks? Do we tape something on their door? How do we notice folks? Because there's been a few incidents in the past where people didn't get letters, and so how do we notice people?
Okay, I'll let Ms. Ozuna answer that.
To the councilwoman, code enforcement has policies, and there's procedures under 904-010 that we have to follow. We send the notifications, including our correction notices and our notice and orders. We send them certified mail and regular mail, and we also post on site of the property. There's one additional that we can do, but we don't usually do it because we don't run into people very often, but we can hand deliver notices directly to people.
Okay.
But the other two take care of our legal obligations.
Okay, so perfect. So when you say you certify, do you have a certified receipt that they received it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
not true.
Okay, back to you, Councilman Greer.
Okay, I don't, I'm not here to say if it's true or not. I know that when certified receipts come back, people get it, they sign for it, and it's there. It's no different than if I receive something certified and it verifies that it was received, and that's why we do that. And so when you were noticed all these multiple times back since 2018, you didn't try to do anything about it, and you can still continue to rent the house out. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
No?
I have here the copy of the letters that were sent. They were sent to a totally different address than the property. They were sent, I don't know if they were sent certified, but they were sent to a different property that is not even in the city limits, even though that the taxes are going to that particular address. Now, as I said, it's all in litigation in court, so best thing to do is just table it until something else can.
Yeah, we would not stop processes of the council if that was the case, and people would just open up litigation for everything and we wouldn't get anything accomplished. Is that valid, Ms. Ozuna?
Mr. Greer?
Yes,
I'm going to let
please.
Brian Scott respond.
Mr. Scott wanted to make
Mayor and Council,
some
it's my
capital-
understanding that the litigation this gentleman is speaking of is for the revocation of his previous short-term rental license that he had and was taken away by the city. That has nothing to do with the fact that he continued to rent after the revocation happened.
Okay, perfect.
Can I respond on the mailings?
Please.
So in regards to this specific notice and order, it was sent to Glish Irrevocable Land Trust, care of I. Gutman at 3377 Warnock Road, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89102, which is the information that is on the assessor's site, which we use as the required information for notifying a property owner. If they have other addresses that are better for them to be notified, they need to notify the assessor's office to change that. That's the reason why we also posted on site, which at the time when Anthony posted it, there was an open house going on, and he left it there with the property representative who was showing the house. I believe that
Okay.
should answer that.
Look, in addition, the address must be valid because you have the envelope, so you must have received it. Now, when you decided to go
received it
check it,
through- I
when you
received-
decided to go check it, it's not on me, but obviously it was
I
sent
received
to the
it
right
from the
address because
renter.
you do have it. And then let's not even talk about the fact that there's $8,499.47 that's due from a business license tax, a room tax that has not been paid. And so you've been renting it out and you haven't been paying the taxes on it. So, look, once again, there's a means to see if these civil penalties can be mitigated, but I'm going to recommend that we move forward with the liens against the property, and then you can maybe speak with Mr. Zuna about.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. And can I make one more clarification, too? We send out these letters to property owners. Many times, they come back undeliverable to us, and we do make note of record of that, and that one the certified came back unsigned, but as you can see, he has the regular mail.
Yeah, I mean, you have it, so you must have received it. So I'm not sure if there's any more comment. If not, then I'm going to move for approval of item 47.
Okay, there's a motion to approve agenda 47, so please vote and please post. And that motion carries. So I guess the conversation continues on with Mrs. Zuna, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda items number 48 through 50 may be considered in one motion, one vote. They are considered routine, non-public, and public hearing items with no condition changes. Any person representing an application or member of the public or member of the council not in agreement with the conditions and all standard conditions for the application recommended by staff should request to have that item removed from this portion of the agenda. And I'm going to read agenda items 48, 49, and 50. EOT 76251, abeyance item, re-notification extension of time, non-conforming public hearing, applicant B&G Equities LLC, owner JL&W LLC, for possible action on a request for an extension of time for a non-conforming liquor establishment tavern use at 2425 North Rainbow Boulevard, C1 Limited Commercial Zone. Agenda item 49, EOT 76264, extension of time, non-conforming public hearing, applicant Fifth Street Gaming LLC, owner 899 Fremont LLC, for possible action or request for an extension of time for a non-conforming liquor establishment tavern use, and related item 50 EOT 76265, and a request for an extension of time for a non-conforming gaming establishment non-restricted use at 899 Fremont Street, 115 South 8th Street, C2 General Commercial Zone. Staff recommends approval on all items which are public hearing, items which I declare open. Is there anyone wishing to be heard on numbers 48 through 50? Seeing none, I'll close public hearing. May I have a motion for number 48? Mayor Pro Tem, pardon? Okay, through 50. Mayor Pro Tem, how about you do that? A motion to approve agenda items 48 through 50.
Instead of Creer,
Or Councilman Creer.
I could move to approve items 48 through 50.
Right.
I so move.
So moved. There's a motion to approve agenda items 48 through 50. Please vote and please post.
I just thought they were his.
Motion carries. And now agenda items 51 and 52, 53, 54, and 55 are obeyed till the 19th of June. So we'll move on to agenda item 56. And agenda item 56, VAR 75829, a request for variance to allow 20 parking spaces where 32 are required. Number 57, VAR 75832, request for variance to allow a 5-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required and to allow a 6-foot rear yard setback where 20 feet is required. And number 58, SDR 75833, on a request for a site development plan review for proposed 4,860 square foot medical office development with waivers to allow a 6-foot landscape buffer along, pardon me, a portion of the east property line where 15 feet are required, to allow a 0-foot landscape buffer along the north, south, and west property lines where 8 feet is required, to allow blank facades where such is not allowed, and to allow less parking lot landscaping than what is allowed. The applicant is Jason Mayhew, and the owner is Michael and Dana Moore Trust and Matthews Family Trust on .42 acres at 1807 West Charleston Boulevard, C1 Limited Commercial Zone. The Planning Commission recommends approval on all items. Staff recommends denial on all items. These are in Ward 1 with Mayor Pro Tem Tarkanian. Public hearing items which I declare open. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, Jason Mayhew here. I'm here with
Billy Platt,
Billy Platt, is owner.
with the owner.
Thank you very much. Okay, would you like to make any
I'll
comments?
give a
or
brief
so?
talk on it.
Please, go for it.
I know we're asking for a lot of different things, and we have a lot of constraints on this site. That's the reason we're asking for so much. So the parking is joint access parking on the whole corner, which consists of these other two buildings, the Del Taco and this property. So we are parking impaired from the entire complex. So we're already going into it a few spaces short automatically. So this property, it's not as impaired just for this property, but we're taking on, I think, 5 or so spaces from the rest of the complex onto this property because of the joint access parking. So that's that one. On the setbacks, the reason we're asking for the setback variances is they're considering Shadow Lane to be our frontage instead of Charleston. And on the north side of the property, we have a 24-foot access ingress-egress agreement for the whole corner. So we can't do any landscaping and no building on that side. So we're forced to build on the south side of that drive aisle. So we're trying to keep in line with the other buildings on the corner to make the whole corner look like it's continuous. So we're keeping the two buildings lined up, and that's the reason for the setback on the south side and on the west side to be reduced, and then the front setback to be reduced to fit that in there. The blank facade is on the west and the south side of the buildings, which you really can't see anyways due to the other buildings in close proximity. The landscaping, we are still landscaping along Shadow Lane. We're just asking for a reduced buffer there. Instead of 15 feet, we have 6 feet at the parking, and then we have plenty at the parking islands, and then 10 feet at the building. We would be required to put one more parking landscape island in here. If we did that, we would lose another parking space. And if we added the 15-foot landscape buffer in the front, we would lose an additional parking space. So we're already parking impaired, so we had to sacrifice a little bit of landscaping to get as many parking spaces on here as we could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, let's hear from Mr. Summerfield.
Good morning, Mayor. So the subject site is not a part of a commercial subdivision and therefore must conform to all development standards associated with landscape buffers and building proximity to parcel lines. Additionally, this is a vacant lot, so no parking impairment rules apply in this location. That being said, the proposed development fails to comply with both development standards that would apply if the site had been a part of a commercial sub or not. This is evidence of a proposed self-imposed request, and therefore the variance and waivers are recommended for denial, as well as the other application. Thank you.
And were you at the Planning Commission? Was there any reason that the council needs to hear their approval?
I was at the Planning Commission. I think the Planning Commission saw that the building, now that it's no longer a residential structure or a separate structure, now that that is completely vacant and that they're trying to integrate it sort of, at least visually, into the rest of the shopping center in this area. I believe that was primarily what Planning Commission was looking at when they made their recommendation.
And on the north of the property, that's an ingress not only into Del Taco, but to the rest of the property on the southwest, correct?
Correct, ma'am.
Is
They
there
have an
an
access easement on the north part of their property that they would not be able to build on or provide parking on, I believe.
And who granted that easement? Was that public property, or was that owned by somebody that owns the rest of the property?
My understanding that is a part of the original deed on the property from when it was originally whatever was there before, but
That easement?
yes, but I don't have the specific data on that.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard on agenda items 56, 57, 58? I'll close public hearing and turn it over. Any comments from council? Okay, Councilwoman, Mayor Pro Tem.
When I spoke with you before, I thought that we could work out the parking, the parking's a problem. And I and my staff went out there to look at it. And it seems more difficult than when you and I talked and just looked at maps. It seems the parking's going to be a problem. Because we're going to be moving Charleston back, right?
Correct.
Which means Del Taco has to move back, right?
We haven't, I don't think Del Taco is going to move. I think it's going to stay where it is. Depends if
But how
the
are they
city
gonna
takes
handle
10
their
feet or
driveway?
15 feet.
By that, I mean they're going to need more property in the back, because how are they going to handle the drive-through?
If the city only takes 10 feet there, I believe we can make the drive-through work on the property. If they take 15 feet, then we have a problem. But if they only take 10, which has been the discussion lately, I believe we can still get the drive-through to come around there.
Is it possible to wait on this until you find if you have 10 or 15? Because if you have 15, I don't think you're going to be able to keep that driveway, and I think Del Taco's going to need that driveway.
From my understanding, the attorneys were given a time frame to propose the redesign of the Real Donuts here and this building for the 10-foot setback, and as long as we provide that in a reasonable time frame, I think in the next week or two, that the city would be gracious enough to give us the 10 feet. That's my understanding from what the attorneys said.
Where is planning, Jorge, excuse me, I'm sorry, wrong direction.
Jorge Cervantes, Chief Operation Development Officer. Mayor Pro Tem, through you, Mayor, I don't have the plans in front of me to show exactly what the proposed take is in front of that property, whether it's 10 or 15 feet. I know that our staff do work with property owners to minimize the impact to those properties, and so we can certainly get together and figure out exactly what that required right-of-way is that we would be procuring and go forward with that. So if you want, we can do that as a follow-up.
And what's the timeline, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem? Mr. Cervantes, what's the timeline for notification?
So our staff has been working with property owners now for maybe the last 6 months. We're in the process of doing acquisitions today. And so I'm sure they've met with the property owner of the Taco Bell over the period and have notified him. But there's been ongoing meetings. We plan to have those acquisitions completed within the next 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months. Does that have bearing, Mr. Summerfield, on any of your things?
Madam Mayor, unfortunately, the site would be deficient on its development standards at the 10 or the 15 feet. I understand Mayor Pro Tem's concern that should the additional take be necessary, that Del Taco will have to be reconfigured. I don't believe it will work if they do require the 15 feet, which may then alleviate the parking issue for this new building. But the reality is, whether it's 10 or 15 feet, the site is not going to meet development standards. So action today or a delay, the right-of-way take will not affect that decision, at least not for the building.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing was, I know that you had wanted to have this for a medical building, if possible.
Correct. If we would like to have the ability to, the owners would like to have the ability to lease it out as a medical space, since the location where it is. If we called it just office space, that would change our parking requirement and make it feasible, but then we couldn't rent out, we would be limiting who we could rent the spaces to.
I feel that, as I checked into it, I was told that medical buildings take a lot of spaces because people are coming and going, and some stay a while for it. So I just wonder if you could possibly wait on this a while?
If we wait until we find out on the street, it could be another 12 months before we can do any development on this
Yeah.
property.
Well, from what Mr. Cervantes said, they're making every attempt not to be the 15 feet where it's probable. For the real donuts, too, that's right across. the way.
Mayor Pro Tem, we can find out what the proposed acquisition is pretty quick, and so we can give them that information within a day. The plans have been developed already. Again, the acquisition process takes a while, depending whether it's a will and sale with a buyer or if we got to go through condemnation. But the information on what the requirement is for the widening road, the information is available today, so we can respond back to
Whatever
it
the
pretty quick.
decision was and how far you would go, 10 or 15.
We can get that information right away.
I would suggest that you obey this. Now, if you don't want to, I'll obey it, but you don't want me to deny it. And I need to deny it because what I found out since I talked to you was about the medical parking, number one, and secondly, about the intensity that's going to be there with the medical district. And thirdly, the problem that a lot of the people who are on Shadow are very concerned about parking in front of their houses and have made comments and complaints.
And there's no
I'm
there's
just
no
trying to be
houses,
fair
there's a
with
few
you here.
hundred feet down the road, so there's no houses within, normal parking distance here.
But what is there? What is there if there are no houses?
There's commercial buildings for
Well,
2
that's
or
what
3 lots
The
down
commercial
further.
buildings also are finding them, that's what I'm talking about, not just houses. I should have said buildings maybe,
Okay.
because they themselves run short of space, and then somebody else is parking there. We've had complaints already, not from you in any way, but from other situations. So I'll obey this until the next meeting. That will
I
cause
think
you
our
a whole lot of
solution is going to be
problem.
to remove the medical office off of here and get our parking down.
Well, then they have to refile and re-notify.
Yeah, I think you'd have to refile then. Is that true, planning?
We would, Madam Mayor, through you, we would need some updated documentation to demonstrate that they no longer wish for the occupancy to be medical office, that they would be going to some other use category, and then we'd need to redo, so they'd need to resubmit their plans to show an updated parking analysis, and then we would need to update the staff report accordingly with our review of that updated
If
documentation.
they do that within a couple of weeks, that,
So we can do it for a verbal report. We cannot do it by the 19th to have that actually as a part of the physical backup. But if that is the way the applicant wants to go and they can get us revised plans by tomorrow, then we can make that analysis and have that for, at least to verbally put it on the record by next meeting. Otherwise, I'd have to ask for at least a 30-day abeyance so that we can get the documentation and do the full review. But I know we're working against meetings, attendance at meetings, so.
could you do it, could you do what he's asking you to do?
I would say let's go for a 30-day abeyance on it. Give us a little bit of time.
30-day abeyance puts us where? July 3rd, and will Councilwoman Mayor Pro Tem still be seated? No, there'll be a new council person.
Yes.
See, I'm not seated well, my last meeting's the 19th. I think I was supposed to work till the 3rd, but the 19th is my last meeting. And in the 3rd, the new person is sworn in. You could bring it up before a new person. I know what you want, and I feel for you there, and I think you're good people, and you're trying to do a good job, and I admire the ladies that have done such a good job holding onto their property. You're 3 ladies. But I have a concern because of the problems there with traffic and the parking. The parking
Yeah.
is,
We already delayed this project for 6 months from when we were going to start because of the taking of Charleston to figure out what was going to go on.
yeah, that wasn't
So
through
there's
my
still-
office, that was through that. I can
Yes.
understand. But within a day, we'll know. I hear you talking down there in planning. Are you coming up with a great idea?
Madam Mayor, we're just trying to do a real quick back-of-the-envelope analysis based on the applicant mentioning that they would change to just regular office, just to make sure, because the big concern would be, does it impact the notification requirement on the variance? And if there's an intensification there at all, then that becomes a problem. So we're just trying to do a real quick back-of-the-envelope calculation based on the information that we have before we say that that's doable in 2 weeks. So
But it would be impaired from the other.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to trail this?
I would like
Trail it,
to
maybe?
trail it. I would like to have you wait a little longer till they can see if they can work it out for you, all right?
Okay.
If you would
Okay.
just have your seat, I will
So
trail
planning
this.
is sitting down and talking about it right now, so we'll just trail you,
Yes.
we'll bring you back.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let me take this one. No stick 'em. Who has a stick 'em? Do you have one of those little stickers?
I don't have one. Do you have a?
Madam Mayor, I apologize. What did we do right there? Did we obey it or did we trail it?
We're trailing it, so
trailing
keep
it.
working.
Okay, thank you.
That's to give you more work.
Okay. Oh, I'll take your, thank you, there we go.
That's a good idea.
There we go. So now, let's see, we are at agenda
57.
item 59. Okay. And 60, VAR 75869, a request for a variance to allow 5 parking spaces where 12 are required. Number 60, SDR 75870, and a request for a site development plan review for proposed 6-unit multifamily residential development with waivers to allow a 3-foot landscape buffer width along the east and west property lines where 6 feet is required, 4-foot landscape buffer width along south property line where 10 feet is required. The applicant owner is Janine Lee et al., 0.16 acres at 2517 Valley Street, R3, medium-density residential zone. The Planning Commission staff recommend denial on both items. These are in Ward 3, Councilman Coffin. Public hearings, which I declare open. Is the applicant or representative present?
Hi, my name is Bruce. I'm representing the owner of the property.
That's your last name, sir? This Bruce?
Oh, the Bruce Yu. The last name is Y.U.
Why did you get that? Thank you. Okay, do you want to make your comments and then?
Yeah, basically, I know, so we were asking the too much way for the parking spaces and for the landscaping buffer. We do understand and we do aware of that. And then we were asking for the waive. But my main question concerning here, and then we do have some brief revision to, we're supposed to have a 6 flags to when we submit it, and to make this, all this requirement is gonna be down to 4 plaques. I spoke with the owner and of the property, so he will willing to do that. And then, do you see this plan? This is awful too small. I'm sorry about
Yes.
that.
I think they can zero in on it.
Yeah.
There it comes. If you just push it forward a little bit,
Yeah.
push it up a little,
Okay.
there you go.
All right. Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. And so it's going to be 4 plaques that this is meets all those requirements and parking lots and buffers and all that. And then and my main question is I don't know if this is the right place to ask, but yeah, and do we, if it's possible, so we can we can do this as a revise under the same applications, and then so we can have a approval for the next meetings. What is the procedures and any recommendation for the approval?
Let's hear from planning, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Peter Lowenstein, Deputy Director for the record. Okay, staff has not received any revised plans, nor has reviewed anything, so the proper procedure would be an abeyance for a minimum of 30 days for the revised plans to be submitted to staff, so we could update all the staff reports and have all the proper documentation.
Okay, thank you. And then at that time, too, in your ward, there will be a new council person seated. So I'm going to ask, first I'm going to ask, is there anyone here that wants to comment on these 2 items, 59 or 60? I'll close public hearing. Councilman Coffin, do you want to make some comments here about
I'm going to move, though. I'm going to make a motion to obey this item, the 2 items,
Yes.
for 1 month, I think the staff was asking for.
What was that? I'm sorry?
So that will be a date in July.
July what? 3rd.
So I'm moving to obey this item until July 3rd.
July
You want
3rd?
time? We need time.
July 3rd?
Yes.
Yes.
And then what do I need to do? Do I have to resubmit it, all this application, or?
Mr. Lowenstein will walk him through what he needs to do real quick
okay.
offline.
All right,
Okay.
there's a motion to obey this item till July 3rd. Please vote.
Thank you very much.
And post, please.
And Madam Mayor,
Motion
if you
carries.
and the Mayor Pro Tem want to bring the previous item back, I do have my back of envelope analysis on the parking to just enter that into the discussion if you'd like.
Okay. So agenda items 59 and 60 have been obeyed to July 3rd, and those carried. And so now we're back to 56, 57, and 58. And Mr. Summerfield.
So, Madam Mayor and Madam Mayor Pro Tem, so based on the applicant's assertion that they would move, instead of having a medical office occupancy, that they would move to what we call office other than listed, that would actually only require 22 parking spaces for the square footage that they're proposing. So that would significantly reduce the variance. They would still have a variance, but now they would be providing 20 parking spaces where 22 are required for that less intense type of office use. So again, that's a minimal update to their plans. That should be able to be accomplished within the next day or so, or at the very least submit us an updated letter indicating that they're changing their use request to office other than listed versus medical office, which would allow this item to be reheard in 2 weeks.
Okay. So this could then at that point be obeyed till the 19th of June.
Is that all right with
I
you?
can get revised drawings in by tomorrow, yes.
Okay, and then you can check with Mr. Cervantes.
You want to put yours on?
Cervantes and also with planning and make sure we're all set to go on the
Okay.
19th. I apologize, usually I give a person a call when a change like this occurs, and I did not do that, I apologize.
No worries, yeah, if we're less parking impaired and we can get it with that less intense use, then we're more than happy to move in that direction. We need to get this thing under construction.
Okay, so we're going to obey this, and that was the vote till the 19th. And Mr. Cervantes should by then have the information from Del Taco, what their plans are. But additionally, we've just heard from Mr. Summerfield.
What
So if
the
it's all right
plans
with
are.
you, please vote. This being obeyed to the 19th with the permission of the applicant as well.
Okay.
And please
If you don't
post.
mind, I'd like to speak for just 1 second.
Sure.
The Del Taco cannot be moved back because of that easement. It can't be moved back past that property because of the easement.
But
You have
that's
the
not what he's
right-of-way that
looking
comes through the
into, but
property.
Well, at this point, this has to do only with the parking spaces because you're changing the intent of the building.
Yes. And I understand what you mean. The difference is the 10 or 15 feet, and that's what he will know by tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, 61 through 65?
Yes, and just to clarify, Mayor, so that abeyance was for 3 items, 56, 57, and 58.
Yes. Okay, now we're on to agenda items 61 through 65. And these are Councilman... No, Councilwoman Fiore. Okay. 61, GPA 75958, a request for general plan amendment from R Rural Density Residential and RNP Rural Neighborhood Preservation to L Low Density Residential. Number 62, ZON 75959, a request for rezoning from RE Residence Estate to R1 Single Family Residential. Number 63, VAR 75960, a request for variance to allow a 1.00 connectivity ratio 1.30 is the minimum required in a private street without an access gate not to be constructed to the public street standards. Number 64, VAC 75961, a request for a petition to vacate U.S. government patent easements generally located north of Regina Avenue, east to TP Lane. And number 65, TMP 75962, request for a tentative map for proposed 16-lot single-family residential subdivision with a waiver to allow 60-foot intersection offset where 220 feet is required, and to defer off-site improvements, including street lights for Regina Avenue where off-site improvements are required at the time of development. The applicant is D.R. Horton, and the owner is Frank D. and Jane Peruccini, 4.43 acres, north side of Regina Avenue, approximately 320 feet east of TP Lane, RE Residence Estate, zone proposed R1 single-family residential. On item 61, the Planning Commission failed to obtain a supermajority vote, which is tantamount to a recommendation of denial. On item number 62 through 65, the Planning Commission recommends approval. Staff recommends approval on items 61 and 62, denial on 63 through 65. These are in Ward 6 with Councilwoman Fiore. Public hearing items which I declare open. Is the applicant or representative present? Yes.
I am. Good afternoon, Your Honor, council members. My name is Tony Sless, address 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, D.R. Horton Homes. If I can just direct your attention to the overhead, you can see our site is just shy of 5 acres. To the north is Centennial, to the south is Regina, and our western property line would be the Regina alignment. We are coming in for a GPA and zone change, GPA to low, zone change to R1. You can see immediately to the east of us a 5-acre parcel that is zoned R1. Although we, I guess, technically had a recommendation from the Planning Commission for denial of the GPA, we did have a 4-0 unanimous vote, but unfortunately at the Planning Commission you need 5 members, 5 votes, and there were only 4 members there at the time. So that is just one of the minor distinctions I wanted to point out, but the Planning Commission was supportive of this. With respect to the design, we showed, I've got here three different maps. First one I want to show you on the left-hand side. This is the one that the Planning Commission approved. This was a 16-lot subdivision, all 10,000 square foot lots. We had a 12-lot cul-de-sac coming in off Centennial, and then 4 lots that had 10,000 square feet here. This is the one that the Planning Commission approved. Subsequent to that, there was a few neighbors that lived across the street with us that contacted us and asked if we could do some redesign with them with respect to this layout. Specifically, what they wanted were larger lots on Regina, fronting Regina, and then with respect to the cul-de-sac, we could do a little bit more intense in density in the cul-de-sac. So what we agreed and worked out with the neighbors is this middle plan right here. You can see essentially what we've done is consolidate the 4 10,000 square foot lots into 2 lots that are just shy of 20,000 square feet, both front onto Regina. What we've done now is add 2 lots into what was a 12-lot cul-de-sac and to make it a 14-lot cul-de-sac. Those lots range between 8,000 and 9,500 square feet. So this is a plan that has been submitted to your planning department back in May, so they have seen this, and this is the one in your backup. And I just want to point out the third plan is actually an approved 18-lot cul-de-sac with, or 18 lots total, a couple of properties fronting Regina, but a total of 18 lots. That's the R1 property immediately to the east. So immediately to the east is actually an 18-lot subdivision. We are at 16. We think it's compatible. With respect to some of the technical things, we are asking to vary the connectivity ratio from the 1.3 to 1. We're kind of a landlocked parcel with respect to just one way out, so that's why we just have the ratio at 1. And then finally, we have the various patent easements that we're asking to be removed. And with that, that summarizes my
Thank you.
report. Thanks.
Mr. Summerfield.
Madam Mayor, so staff finds that the proposed amendment to the general plan to be compatible with the existing adjacent land use designations and is recommending approval of that application. Excuse me. I do need to clarify, the agenda does indicate approval on the rezoning. However, the proposed rezoning district would allow lot sizes that are less than 10,000 square feet in size, and that is the 10,000 square foot minimum was established by the 2016 interlocal agreement planning area B provisions, and so staff cannot recommend approval of the zone change. As such, staff cannot support the proposed rezoning application and all subsequent applications, and therefore is recommending denial of them, with the exception of the proposed vacation application. Staff also does support that application. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is opportunity for anyone, public hearing. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Hey, I'm Richard Galecki. I live across the street, 9305 West Regina. So I live, can you see?
Yep.
Right here.
Okay.
We actually, all the neighbors and everybody, we actually agree with this one. This keeps our street normal, matches the other side of the street, and then the wall here, and then this exits out to Centennial. So we agree with this one. They've been very helpful. They've actually worked with us, worked back and forth. So if we could do that, that would be,
Okay.
that would work.
That's what we like to see, our residents happy.
So
how lucky for you. I'm going to close public hearing unless there's someone else that wanted to come. Thank you for coming down, sir, and speaking. Councilwoman Fiore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move to approve item 61 GPA 75958 with all staff conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on agenda item 61. Please vote and please post. And on 62, that carries. 62, please.
I move to approve item 62, zone 75959 with all staff conditions.
Please vote and please post. Motion carries. Number 63.
I move to approve item 63, VAR 75960 with all staff conditions.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor. Please vote. Please post. Motion carries. Number 64.
I move to approve item 64, VAC 75961 with all staff conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve on 64. Motion carries. Oh, please post. Did you? Yes. And on 65, please.
I move to approve item 65, TMP 75962 with all staff conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion number 65. Please vote and please post. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, agenda items number 66 through 73 have been obeyed to the 19th of June. Numbers 74 through 77 have been withdrawn without prejudice. And so we are now on to 78 and 79. 78. Okay. 78, VAR 75906, variance, public hearing, applicant owner, Gilcrease Nature Sanctuary, possible action and appeal of approval by the Planning Commission or request for variance to allow 38 parking spaces where 94 are required on 7.88 acres, 8103 Russell Street, APM 125-09-401-033, Ward 6, Councilwoman Fiore. Staff recommends denial. Planning Commission 4-0 vote, recommend approval. Is a representative of the Gilcrease Nature Sanctuary here?
Yes, ma'am. Greg Crater, 1608 Sandinista Drive.
Thank you. Do you want to speak to this, please?
Certainly. The request for the parking is pretty simple. We're adding an additional aviary building, so we're going to have more capacity for birds, not more capacity necessarily for human beings. So the adding the parking spaces would be onerous to us from a financial perspective, and the building itself that we're going to request to build through the building department is only for birds.
Okay, I love birds. Okay, let me read 79 so you can comment on that too. SDR 75907, Site Development Plan Review related to VAR 75906, public hearing, applicant owner, Gilcrease Nature Sanctuary, possible action on appeal, the approval by the Planning Commission on a request for major amendment to an approved Site Development Plan Review SDR 43981, proposed 3,500 square foot expansion of existing commercial recreation amusement outdoor facility, nature sanctuary on 7.88 acres, 8103 Russell Street, APM 12509 401 033, also with Councilwoman Fiore in Ward 6. Any comment on that piece? What are you doing with the building, the expansion?
So there's no true expansion of any of the existing buildings. We're going to build a new aviary that will house more birds. The facility is going to celebrate 40 years here at the end of the month, and as probably all of you know, it's a completely donation-based run facility. And so the building itself is going to allow the preserve to house more birds. Some of the things that we were requested to do originally, i.e. making the off-site improvements, curb and gutter and whatnot, we've asked for that to be put off so that we can start to try to identify what that's going to cost, put funds together to address it at some point down the road. But what we were trying to do on the items where we're asking for the variance is simply get us to a point where financially we can go forward with the building that we need for these birds, and then have an understanding going forward of the different costs involved for the things we need to do to improve the property with some time to get that done.
Excellent. Great. Mr. Summerfield?
Madam Mayor, so these items were actually approved by the Planning Commission because the applicants did have an issue with Condition 12 of the Site Development Review. That is why they've appealed that to the City Council. It's a little different, an appeal of an approval. For more information on that, though, I'm going to pass it to Lucien Payette from Public Works to talk about Condition 12.
Madam Mayor, Lucien Payette, Public Works. We've agreed to change our condition number 12 to give them the 5 years that they need to collect their funds to connect to the public sewer. So I can read a condition in that just says, within 5 years from the date of this SDR approval, or if directed sooner by the Southern Nevada Health District, abandon all septic tank systems in accordance with Southern Nevada Health District regulations and connect to the City of Las Vegas public sewer system. And that would replace condition number 12.
And that was agreed to by your board?
Well, I've been asked by the board to agree to it, but to ask for an additional 5 years, giving us a total of 10 years to get together the funds to hook up to the city sewer. That's what I've been asked to request.
I'm wondering, Mr. Cervantes, did they take the same insurance that all of us residents can take out for the hookup of sewer? Oh, they could. Okay, so back to you. What do we say about that, Mr. Summerfield?
So I've looked over to Mr. Payette. I believe the timeframe was a reasonable timeframe from a Public Works perspective. Again, as the condition reads, if the septic fails or for any reason the health district were to decide that they must get off of the septic, they're going to have to do it sooner. So I believe it would be at this point, unless Mr. Payette weighs in differently, at the discretion of council whether or not to entertain a 10-year window instead of a 5-year window.
Mr. Payette.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mr. Summerfield is completely correct. It's more of a city council discretion if you'd like to go the 10 years. Our normal bonding period is 2 years, so when they say they're going to build something, it's usually 2 years, and we've extended to 5, so it's really more of a city council decision if you'd like to give them more years.
And what is the cost of hookup to, at this time? I know in 10 years it will be astronomical, but if they were asked or encouraged by the health department to sign up to city sewer, what is an estimate of cost so that they know what they're dealing with?
I apologize, I don't have the estimate cost. They do go by equivalent residential units, so however many bathrooms they have and sinks, they count those up to determine what their connection fee will cost, and our connection fee is by a per ERU basis.
So is that as we were just told, to go back to planning everything else that they're going to have to do? Isn't that germane to fitting in the cost of hooking into sewer if in fact the septic fails? 10 years, a long time. Not that I have a problem with it, because they are 501c3. And so, but that is an enormous, having done it, the cost is very, very significant. And does that go in a 501c3? As you're planning the rest of the property and what you're doing, that should figure in.
Madam Mayor, no, he said it depends on the number of bathrooms that you have.
Well, that they're planning, because everything
That's
right
what-
now, they want the birds in first. And then, so they can really get a grasp on what they're doing for expansion and development.
Yeah, at this time, we don't really have any plans to make any other expansion to the property past this new aviary for the birds. What we've learned through this process and our meeting with the Planning Commission is that there's some off-site work. Sewer was added to it after that meeting. But for example, the curb and gutter that we need to address that hasn't been in front of our property forever. So we have some things in play that we know we're going to have to address, and we have to start finding the funding for.
We have many places in the city that they've gone longer than 10 years without curbs and gutters. Your home may be one of them, Mayor. I'm not sure. I know my home is, we do have the curbs and the gutters, but we have places in the city that don't.
Right, and around our property is one of them. And so that
That's
was
just-
one of the things that was originally identified by the building department when we first started talking about this project as something that needed to be addressed.
Is there a
So-
problem with flooding or anything around there that the gutters would be particularly needed?
Not that I'm aware of, other than it changes the aesthetic of that street.
The only thing I'm saying is that we have places here within the city that have gone longer than 10 years without the curbs and gutters, and they're doing fine. We have some who did not put in curbs and gutters, and they're now requesting it.
Right,
So it depends, because
Right.
some places don't want it.
understood.
Okay, so I forgot whether I closed public hearing. Did anybody want to speak on these two issues? I'll close public hearing then and turn it over to Councilwoman Fiore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does this affect your cost of your bond for expanding it out?
It would. Any additional work that we're going to do outside of the property would impact the cost of our bond. It's my understanding.
Okay. So,
But we don't anticipate needing to purchase a bond for the construction work that we anticipate doing, because that's simply a building on site. None of the work that we're proposing addresses anything off-site.
so if you ever go to my YMC office, I have two huge photos, original photos of Mr. Gilcrease in the way beginning, when you guys started out with his little apples. And so your orchid has been around for how many years?
40 here in just another week or two. We're having an anniversary.
Well, good. So I would like to, for you guys to continue everything you do and help you. So with, I also want to extend him the 10 years.
And that's your motion as an amendment?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I can just make a really quick
Please.
clarification. So at the Planning Commission, the Planning Commissioner's intent was to kind of give them the 5 years. And condition number 10, which I don't know if we can look at it today, if we're looking at the entire SDR. Condition 10 was written so that they would post a bond kind of like immediately and then hold it for 10 years. And what I'm hearing in the presentation is that they don't plan on posting a bond to start with, but they still want to wait the 10 years. So I'd have to kind of
So-
look at condition 10 to see if the intent is to kind of give them a 10-year window to collect funds and not post a bond at all at this time, then that would change something in condition 10. I'd have to read through it and change it. But condition 12 could just be simply changed to add, the 10 years from 5 years to 10 years. But I just want to make sure I understand the intent of.
So this is my intent with these folks, because they've been around for 40 years, and we haven't had an issue in 40 years. And I doubt we're going to have an issue in the next decade. And I want to help them grow without unnecessary government interference. So whatever it is that we have to change, that is my request.
So her motion has been to extend as an amendment to change from 5-year on this to 10.
Madam Mayor, if I could, give me and Mr. Pyatt just a second, because her motion does require some additional amendments to conditions, so we need to just verify what those entail.
Okay. So a little power meeting right here in front of you. Well, see there where we are. Look at your monitors. There's Mr. Scott, Councilman Anthony, Mayor Pro Tem, me with my light scarf, Councilman Coffin. I'm looking at us on your monitor.
We're watching ourselves on TV.
No, I'm just looking at all of us. I can see who's paying attention, and there's Mr. PR man down there at the end. You're all on TV at this point. No, so they're having a high-powered meeting there, and is this an amendment, Mr. Scott, to what's posted?
It would be an amendment, but it's an allowable amendment. I guess the only issue would be if there's going to be a bond and what the cost of that bond would be. So are you not in favor of the bond, Councilwoman?
No. Well, so here's the problem, Madam Mayor. They struck a variance that would have allowed them to not do the off-site requirements that this project would have required. Because they struck that, you do not have a variance in front of you today that would allow them to not do the off-sites. So we would need to obey this and bring forward another variance so that they can or we can give an alternative for condition 10 that would allow them a 10-year time frame in which to bring forth those improvements, is what I believe I'm hearing. Additionally, you could make those changes, and then if the councilwoman wants them to bring back a review of condition and a future variance at a future date, but so that they can move forward with getting what they need to do to get the new sanctuary building under construction, that would be an option as well.
Okay, great. So let's.
And Peter has an amended condition to read,
Okay.
if that's what you'd like to do.
That's what I would like to.
Yes, ma'am.
I can do that on the motion for 79 when we get there.
Okay, so we'll start with agenda item 78. How feel you, Councilwoman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve item 78 with the VAR 75906.
Okay, there's a motion to approve agenda item 78. Please vote. Please post. The motion carries. Now, if you would, Mr. Lowenstein, number 79.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we would be amending condition number 10. The second to last sentence would now read, alternatively, the applicant shall, after 10 years, design, but not construct off-site improvements for Al-Karasin Street and Russell Street and post a bond for all improvements not constructed at this time on Al-Karasin Street and Russell Street, or make the appropriate improvement contribution required by Title 19.02.025 prior to the issuance of permit or issuance of permits for this site. And then the deletion of the last sentence of that condition.
And then replacement of condition 12.
And then as previously read into the record, the amended condition number 12 by Lucian.
10 years instead of 5.
That
But I
reflects 10
heard
years.
you mention in there, unless I misheard you, if there is such a word, misheard, about posting a bond. But if they choose not,
It would be after 10 years.
Okay. So, is that agreeable?
Very acceptable,
You're
thank you.
representing?
Yeah.
Okay, back to you,
Thank you,
Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor. Okay, so with 79 and with Mr. Lowenstein's words just now, I move to approve item 79, SDR 75907.
Okay,
And,
there's a motion on number 79. Please vote and please post. Wonderful. So we'll be seeing you with new birds.
Wonderful, thank you
Good
so
luck.
much.
Wonderful. Pardon? And look where we are. Right here, it's 20 minutes after 12, and I made a promise, sort of, to Councilman Coffin that we would get to his number 80. I said before 1. Well, we are well before 1. So this is agenda item 80, TMP 75951, Showboat 2019, a commercial subdivision, non-public hearing, applicant LOCH Losha Engineering, owner 2800 Fremont LLC, for possible action. City Council review of an approval by the Planning Commission on a request for a tentative map for a one-lot commercial subdivision on 25.55 acres at 2800 Fremont Street, C2 General Commercial Zone, Ward 3, with Councilman Coffin. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. Wow, togetherness. This item is not a public hearing, but is the applicant or representative present?
I'd like to set it up.
Oh, time out. Councilman Coffin, go for it.
Thank you. I wanted to set this up. Thank you very much. Mr. Bigachia is here under command. This could have been final action at the Planning Commission. No, it probably was. But I decided to drag him in here because we have something to brag about here in the city of Las Vegas. For, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, the blight on the east side, on Fremont, one of our entrance points to the city, has been a eyesore, a blight. And Mr. Bingachia has put things together to take control of that land and has put forth a development of first caliber development, working with our staff. He has had a lot of little things that weren't quite what he thought, but our staff has worked overtime to try to make it possible for this to happen. And I think it's too bad the press isn't here, but they're going to be watching Channel 2 and Cheech. The idea is that we need to brag about this, Your Honor. Here it is. It's ready to go. And if it wasn't for just intervening in his schedule a little bit, hardly anybody would know. So that's why I invited Chichi here to just take a few minutes to tell us about his project and show us the pictures.
Wonderful. Well, we welcome you, and I do recall beating on Mr. Cervantes for a long time about how we needed to get a grocery store here, and working with the Gordons to bring us a Ralph's or something, and trying to cobble together this is a Palace or Fertitta property in the vicinity as well, and to put everything together. So it's only taken us 8, 9, 10, 12 years. So wonderful. Please go ahead and share with us your project.
I'll make sure I get this right here. My name is Chichi Bengachia, owner of Bentar and this property here at I bought from Station Casinos May of 18. We had a vision of, we had a history with the Showboat. My dad was a 21 dealer there. I bowled there.
Wow.
And, I was kind of surprised one day I flew out and I saw that piece from the air. I'm thinking, what's going on? So I started, inquiring, and it took me a while to figure out what I thought we could do, and it's still challenging. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're good. So I want to thank Mr. Coffin for bringing me up here today and asking me to explain what we're doing. We've gone through the special use permit process. So we have approved for 344 units on 16 acres. We have the front 9 acres approved for a market, medical. We're trying to get we got a medical clinic we're working with right now on the center, 3 acres. And then on the south 3 acres, we have mini storage. And I've been in Vegas all my life, and so I reached out and teamed up with the Herbst family for the market. We're actually contemplating with the little Hispanic-based store too as well, maybe call it El Terribles or something like that. And so we're working with Tim Herbst and Troy. They've been great. I'm working with Mr. Hammer, Jim Hammer, on the mini storage. So I think, working with those people, they're the experts in that field. And so I feel comfortable with them. We have all our financing approved through TBK Bank in Colorado. I submitted our civils last week. We're going to submit our architecturals on June 20th. So hopefully we get a loan in August, and maybe we can break ground in September. That's our hope. Working with your staff and hoping we can get our civils through and get a grading permit and get through the building permit process. Everybody's been great so far, so we do appreciate their help. That basically tells you the story of, what this property can do. The important element that what I'm being challenged on, and what I want to, the challenge that I want to take on is try to figure out how to get affordable housing for the people in this area with, no subsidy, stuff like that. Market, it's market rate, but it's affordable. I just need to build it, and I know I can build it, and we designed it. I worked with Swisher Hall. We came up with our own design. All the second floor units are accessible from the first floor, safety, secure. And then, the big component in that area is all those apartments, they're mostly apartments in parking lots. I don't know if you can visualize that. And they lack amenities. And so we designed it such a way that we created in the middle, if you look on that site plan, I don't know if you can tell everybody has this, but in the middle, we put a park in the middle. It's almost 2 acres.
Beautiful.
And the pool, and a 4-on-4 soccer field, cabanas, not cabanas, but they're like barbecue areas, shaded barbecue areas, and a little half court. So I think the residents that can step up and take this, they'll enjoy it. And we're really excited. I teamed up with Stout Management, and the mayor knows Stout family, Debbie. I teamed up with them, and they're going to manage it for us. And they're excited about the opportunity. Now, I got like a little elevation of the El Terrible, so you can see that. And I think that's going to, Mr. Anthony, we opened one of these up yesterday, up in Lone Mountain in Cliff Shadow. That was not your ward, that for Corey Morley, so it's a Herbst Market. And these guys go up there and look, turned out really nice, by the way. So this is the same concept, and I think it's going to do really well there. And I appreciate the opportunity and the challenge, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're excited about this, as Councilman Coffin. What high school?
Gorman?
Yeah, so I didn't know.
You really had to ask that.
Right.
Come on. Didn't he just say all the successes that he's had in his career and what was going on?
But your company's gotten a great reputation. You've done a great job.
Well, thank you. Our company is here. We're 30 years now, and thanks to Tarkanian family, of course. There are my namesake, Lois, and I'm happy to be here today. First of all, to tell Lois, thank you for all your years of public service. Even when I said I don't know why you're doing it, but I do appreciate it. Everybody in our family appreciates it, and all our friends appreciate Lois, what she's done here in the city council. And I wish I could have got this started while Mr. Coffin was still here, but it took me. I'm a little busy trying to keep everybody happy, so I got to squeeze everybody in. So it's good.
Well,
we're having a good time, and I appreciate it.
Well, and I know he takes great pride in this development. It's very excited, and so.
Don't showboat.
Yeah.
All right. Your Honor, I move for approval of item 80.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve on agenda item 80. Please vote and please post.
I just wanted to say that I know Mr. Bengachia has worked long and worked hard on this, and it's just a marvelous thing to have in that area.
Or anywhere. We'd take you anywhere. We could use you in one.
Pardon?
We could use you in Ward 1. We got a lot of open area.
I kept telling him that. Why can't I get a store
Right,
in Ward 1?
right.
I've been in Ward 1, I don't know, 23 years.
You live in Ward 1?
Yep.
So how come you haven't built one for Councilwoman Tarkanian? It's not too late. She has 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Mayor, Mr. Bengachia actually built the new Gorman. He was a contractor that built the new Gorman, and everything that's going on there. So he is very, very reputable and very, very good man. He and his brother, who I happen was in my class and known him for a number of times and a number of years. So it's great to see you here. And if you mentioned affordable housing, you know, that's a big issue in Ward 5 throughout the city, throughout the nation. And working with, I'd love to sit down with you and our director, Kathy Thomas Gibson, who heads that up for us, and sit down and talk about maybe some strategies to move forward in other parts of the ward as well. So if you get a free moment,
That'd be great.
let's sit down. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that motion obviously carried. Thanks for sharing it with us. Great. Yep, you're welcome in all awards, I think, so let's get going. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 81 has been obeyed to the 19th. So we're on to our final item, 82, and that is DIR 76467, public hearing, possible action on appeal of a director's decision regarding non-acceptance of an application based upon the interpretation of a property line of a protected use as it relates to marijuana dispensary use located at 7650 West Charleston Boulevard, C1 Limited Commercial Zone, Ward 1, Councilwoman Tarkanian. Staff recommends denial. This is a public hearing which I declare open. And so we're going to hear from the applicant, but at this point I have heard from legal as well, because this is process policy and everything else, not specific to a business.
That's correct, Mary. Because your son is in the marijuana industry, you have abstained on all of the items related to marijuana. Because this affects a greater number of businesses, and marijuana just happens to be one of those, we have indicated you're able to vote on this item.
I am able to vote on this
Yes, correct.
item. Okay, so let's get started, and welcome to another Gorman man to the council microphone.
No, it's coming from Faith Lutheran. It's the other side of the Wallapai, okay? It's the better side of Wallapai for
Faith.
now.
All in on Faith. Go, I
Heavily
like
invested in Faith, okay? I may need it
go
here,
ahead.
so let's see. All right.
You are.
I think it's the afternoon, or still, actually, it's the afternoon. So
Yes.
good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the council. My name's Bob Gronauer, 1980 Festival Plaza. I'm here representing Randy Black Sr. There's three parts of the presentation I just want to go through fairly quickly. The first thing that I like to do is, this is not your normal zoning and land use matter that's before you. Unfortunately, been trying to work with your planning department and other staff with respect to an issue here for Randy Black Sr. trying to submit an application. I have the utmost respect, our office, with your planning staff, with Robert Summerfield, Peter Lowenstein, and your staff. Sometimes, unfortunately, we can't agree to agree on an issue, so this is why I'm standing before you today to ask for some direction. So that's the first part that I wanted to mention as I go through the presentation with respect to why we're here. The second part of this is of why we're here on the overhead is just to let you know where this all started. So Randy Black Sr. is looking to do a marijuana dispensary here in the city of Las Vegas. He's one of the newer licenses that were just awarded by the state. There's a piece of property here which is off of Charleston, on the corner of Charleston and Buffalo. This is located on the northeast corner of Charleston and Buffalo. It's the old 7-Eleven building that's located there, right adjacent to the Kilroy Kilroy's, which used to be Kilroy's Tavern, but I think it's a Dottie's or a Molly's right now, kind of tavern use. When we were preparing the application for submittal, there's a requirement that you have to be in excess of 300 feet from certain protected uses. The aerial that I'm showing you here with the radius in here is a 300-foot radius that we show you. Within that 300-foot radius, certain protected uses, we're showing you that we're not within those protected uses. And then we have that 1,000-foot radius in here that shows you that we're not having a school within 1,000 feet of us also. The way our engineers and our office has interpreted your ordinance is that the property is measured from the use itself from the property line, which is the proposed dispensary property line, to the actual property line of the use of a protected use that's in this area. That protected use that's in this area is a Summerlin Dance Studio, okay? We're showing it that we're within 300 feet of our property, that there is no types of uses in this area. However, your staff has taken the position that because this property down here is part of a commercial subdivision itself, it then is within the 300 feet, although it's about 600 feet away from the property itself. So we delved into what I handed out to you is the code itself, and I just want to highlight one of the areas here because I think it's critical as I get into the last piece of this to really break it down so you can appreciate the reason why we're standing before you. And I'm going to go down where I've highlighted in the asterisk of 3. It talks about for the purposes of the requirement of number 2 and for the purposes only. And this is getting into how you measure the distance separation between the properties itself. And what's important in 3A, it states that the property line of a protected use refers to, and I've underlined this for you as you can see it here, property line of a fee interest parcel that has been created by an approved or recorded parcel map or subdivision map, and then it further goes on and does not include a property line of a leasehold parcel. So what you have here is essentially, many years ago, this is the piece of property that's kitty corner that I've been talking to you about, and this is important for the crux of the argument here, is this is the commercial subdivision map that was created many years ago. When you're creating a commercial subdivision map, or even if you don't have a commercial subdivision map, you have one fee interest in parcel, which is this parcel itself. However, what it allows you to do when you create the commercial subdivision map, you are able to create additional fee interest parcels, which as you can see here, parcel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then down, 5 and 6, but down here in parcel 5 is what I was showing you on the overhead is a separate parcel, which is where the dance studio is located. So when you take a look and you start reading your code itself, it talks about a fee interest property being created, and it talks about a leasehold interest. If we were in a leasehold interest piece of property, and today, down in this area, on this piece of property, which is a commercial subdivision, we had the Summerlin Studio here, I agree with you. The interpretation of your code is the leasehold interest would have to be at this property line here. However, when you have separate property lines and it's fee interest, as is stated in your code, we have a fee interest parcel, we believe, and our engineers also believe, that the distance separation should be measured to this property line here. And in conclusion, and I've said this sort of sarcastically with your staff as we've been going back and forth, is if it looks like a duck and acts like a duck, it has to be a duck. Because number one, if it looks like a duck, we have a separate property ownership here than the ownership within the ownership on the parcels here. And it has a separate APN number. Okay, so if it looks with separate ownership, separate APN number, and more importantly, pays its own separate taxes and acts like its own separate property owner, one would conclude that it should be rationally measured from that property line. But not only that, if you're using some rationale, but as I said, the way we've interpreted through our engineers with respect to the code there. So that's where we are, and respectfully, I'm just trying to try to push this issue forward. I have the utmost respect for your staff. It's just one of these things that we unfortunately have to bring to the table here and hopefully get some direction, because what will happen is the decision like this will mean that any types of use, not the use that's trying to go in here, but other commercial shopping centers where you're across the street from, you have this, basically, a substantial amount of your commercial subdivisions are built just like this, where you would have a use such as the use that we're talking about today, kitty corner or across the street, that is more than excess of the 300-foot separation. But because it's a commercial subdivision, if the interpretation is there, you're going to remove the opportunity to file for those types of applications that one would like to in the city of Las Vegas. So with that being said, I can answer any other questions. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your staff for trying to work with us and trying to get to a solution here, and I'm open to any suggestions that you may have.
Thank you very much. I think, Mr. Summerfield?
Madam Mayor, again, staff's position is that the code is very clear, that you've directed that a parcel for a protected use is created either by a parcel map or a subdivision map, not a boundary line adjustment, which is how the parcels that were in the exhibit were demonstrated. Those are lines that are created via the recorder and not lines that are creating development parcels. So with that, I believe the city attorney may also have some words on this issue, but again, in this case, your code is very clear. There are two mapping actions that allow for the creation of a property line as it relates to a protected use, and that test is not met in the request that's before you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we could then, Mr. Jerbick? It seems to me like this is legal interpretation and ownership and leasing and.
Thank you.
Thank
Brad
you.
Jerbick, City Attorney's Office. Let me first of all say I agree with both, most everything that Mr. Grunauer said, and I agree with what staff just reported to you. This is really a fine distinction, but it's a definite black and white legal distinction. I met with Mr. Black and met with Mr. Grunauer a while ago to discuss this issue. The problem is how the parcel was created. The code says it needs to be created by parcel map or subdivision. So being somewhat ignorant of why these things are distinctive, I asked staff to explain to me what's the difference between a parcel map and, a parcel that you just create by getting a survey and recording it versus a parcel map. Well, anybody can go get a survey and record it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've created a legal parcel. So if you have a parcel, hypothetically, and you draw a line down the middle of it with a survey, and then you go and record it, you may have done so in a way that creates a piece of land that might be landlocked. It might not have adequate parking. It might not meet setback requirements. It wouldn't be the kind of parcel that the city wants to see when you create a parcel map. And so in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Summerfield or Mr. Lowenstein, but in this particular case, the line would have probably met every standard of a parcel map if it had been created by one in the first place. And I think it was created at a time before the marijuana laws even existed, so there's nothing nefarious going on here. But the bottom line is, it was never subject to staff review as would have been a parcel map under the existing law. And so we had a long discussion about this, and there is a solution, and the solution is you can amend your code to do it, but as currently written, it doesn't allow for it. It only allows for parcels that are created by parcel map or subdivision, and this was created by neither one. And so we had a discussion a while ago, maybe a month or two ago, about changing the code to add something to the effect of, or any other method of parcelization that would be the equivalent of a parcel map or subdivision. Well, that creates problems too, because now staff would receive an application that hadn't been pre-reviewed for the parcel itself from which you're measuring distances, so they would have to do that measurement after the fact during the course of an application. And it might change the way taverns are measured. Some of them may suddenly become eligible and not eligible. So in my eagerness to suggest a solution to all of this, it may have had the law of unintended consequences. So right now, as I discussed with Mr. Perigo and Mr. Lowenstein and Mr. Summerfield, we probably can craft something if you want it, but it's going to take some time to work on something like that, and we'd only do it at your direction. But until I have direction from my client as to specifically what they want, we're not able to craft that right now. So I have to tell you, in my opinion, it's black and white right now, and I think the director's decision should be upheld.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, please, Councilman
I have a
Coffin.
question, Brad. This is about a dance studio,
Yes.
And when we created the laws and we created separations at the last minute, I remember Councilwoman Tarkanian bringing in, I think, martial arts studios and dance studios, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
And I
she
thought,
did.
why in the world would we do that when you've got adults going to these places? Children might go there, but it didn't make sense to me to exclude something quite so common and safe as a dance studio.
Yeah, it's funny, we could have a philosophical discussion here. First of all, the code doesn't say dance studio, and it doesn't say karate studio. The code says, and I'll read it directly, for any use whose primary function is to provide recreational opportunities to minors. So you look at what goes on inside, not what goes on. So I think we'd all concede, if this were a dance studio for adults, if this were Arthur Murray, and they're all over 21, there wouldn't be a distance problem here. But the funny thing about this language, and I think this might mirror the state code, and I don't mind saying, my opinion on the record on this, we have all over town McDonald's that have these playpens, and they have full balls that kids jump into and slides and stuff like that, and they don't count. And a kid can go there without a parent, and yet they don't count. But we have these other uses, like a karate studio or a dance studio, that I'll bet you not a single kid goes to without a parent there. And so we had a discussion at one point about a children's dentist. Does that meet the requirement? This is the kind of loosey-goosey language that leads to these kinds of discussions sometimes. So we would look to your guidance on
Can I ask
all
you,
of this.
what would be quicker, changing the ordinance or doing something else?
Like I said, you could change the ordinance, but I would want you to hear from staff before we go down that path, because if you change it just for this, change how parcels are created.
No, I'm sorry, you misunderstand. I'm just saying, don't create it for this parcel.
Oh, yeah. You could change your ordinance to say something else, as long as you're not in
How long does
contrary to
that
state
take?
law.
I'm going to be gone. Councilwoman is going to be gone, but how long would that take? Do I have to notice the world to take that out or to modify that so it makes sense?
Madam Mayor, if I may, just to be clear, so this would be a change to Title 19, so that means that any proposed change would have to go through the Planning Commission, because this is new language or a modification of existing language. So the typical text amendment process for Title 19 takes approximately 121 days to get it through the Planning Commission hearings, to get it through the council, 3 readings and recommending committee. So typically the fastest we can get an ordinance change in a non-emergency basis, because your charter does allow for emergency conditions, but I don't think this warrants that. The minimum is usually about 120 days.
And am I understanding this correctly? That piece is owned by the individuals who operate this dance studio. This is not a situation where somebody owns the property and is leasing it back out.
Yeah, I cannot confirm or deny. I just know it's a separate ownership. It may be under the dance studio itself. I didn't go that extra route. I just was
Well, I mean,
focusing
I'm
on
just
the
thinking
ownership.
and trying to look at all the information. I understand everything's in place and from our legal advice that it's concrete. But what I'm wondering, were I in your position or the ownership of trying to do this, why, if in fact it's operative by a family and they bought the property to build a building, I would seem to go to them and say, why don't you just have a yoga studio for people that are of adult age? And so that's why I'm asking about ownership of property or ownership and leasing property. Do our ordinances, codes fit the lease end as well as the ownership end, or just only the ownership of the property?
Madam Mayor, so it's a protected use. So the protected use, we don't identify whether the use owns the property. What we identify is the nature that the property or the parcel line that's been created. So again, a tenant in a building that is a protected use, such as a school. Many of our charter schools do not own their facilities, but they are still schools per our use designations, and so they have protected status whether they own the building or not.
But they could close tomorrow.
They could close, and so what will end up happening often in cases like this, where you have a use that's being proposed in an area that's rubbing up against a protected use. We had this issue actually in Ward 5 not that long ago, where we had a daycare center that was leasing their space. They were there first, so they were the protected use, and because the prospective business owner really thought that that location was ideal for their thing, they worked with the daycare to relocate and found them actually a better place for the daycare. But once that protected use was gone, we issued a notice that the use had discontinued, and then that applicant was able to come forward and make their application, the one that was doing, in that case, it was alcohol related. But that happens all the time where a property or a developer will want to come in, they'll want to do something, there's a protected use in that area, and they'll work with that property and business owner to move that protected use out of the radius so that they can move forward with their project. That does happen all the time.
And so in this case, though, does well, you don't know, or do we know that the people or the company that owns this particular contentious piece of property that is creating this, do they own and operate this studio for youth?
Madam Mayor, we don't know. We just know that we have licensed an activity here that meets to use the city attorney's words, the somewhat loose, the fact that it is operated primarily for minors, in that it is a children's dance studio.
How many years has this property, that acreage that's commercial, when did the city first address that and put it into its category?
It would be when the business came forward for a business license, so we don't usually investigate for that level of detail on the protected use. Once we establish it's a protected use, we don't generally get into a great deal of detail on the protected use because they're outside of the application. It's usually the applicant who we get details on their property. Not normally do we do a deep dive on other properties in the area.
Well, knowing that we're investigating proper language use of other areas, I mean, there seems to be confusion here. And so, I mean, maybe it's only mine. I have not spoken to any of the council persons, and I'm sure Councilman Anthony's going to ask some questions too. But you had mentioned, Mr. Jerbick, that the city council could ask staff to go back and come back to us with some clarifications, further ones, and then maybe it is something, because it is a different day. Every day with technology, everything's happening, so now marijuana wasn't an issue 8 years ago, 6 years ago, and so things are changing, and maybe these are things we need to look at for how we align property here. I mean, are we in a position, I'm going to ask Councilman Anthony to make his comments, because to me, this is an issue on that particular piece. Please.
So, Brad, I just need to be real clear on this. So, in this this handout that Mr.
Gronauer. It's all right. He's using some pot back here, I guess. I don't know. Where's your tracking?
It says the property line of a protected use refers to the property line of fee interest parcel. So according to Mr. Gronauer, he delineated the separate fee interest parcel, which is outside the protected use line. So
yeah, there's more to
the way
that
I'm
sentence.
reading that would be clear to me that we would grant the waiver.
If there was a period right there, you would.
Okay.
If there was a period right there, you would, because this is a property line of a fee interest parcel. Nobody's questioning that. But then it goes on to say, but that line has to have been created by one of two ways: parcel map or subdivision map. And it wasn't created by either one. So if you put a period at the end of fee interest parcel, you're right. You wouldn't even care how it was created. But the code does care how it's created, because I explained the code cares because they don't want people creating parcels that are illegal. We actually had somebody draw a line around a building. They wanted to get a dispensary. I won't mention the people and I won't mention the area, but there was a building in the middle of a parking lot that's unused right now. And in order to get it to qualify and meet distance separation, they drew a parcel line around the perimeter of the building. Well, think about that. There's no access to that parcel. There's no parking. How do you measure setbacks? I mean, we wouldn't ever allow, under a parcel map analysis, that kind of parcelization.
But there's the and. That's exactly, you've just nailed it with the period or the word and that goes back to our and/or discussions is the language that the city's been using in certain property areas. So the fact
Mayor,
that there is none.
I just do a follow. So what would be an example of a fee interest parcel that was created with the recorded parcel map or subdivision map? Do we actually do that?
Madam Mayor, through you, so yes, that's the predominant way that property is divided, is either via a parcel map or a subdivision map. In fact, you just saw one of those just moments ago with the Showboat property. That was technically a tentative map that creates a subdivision. Now, that mapping in the future has the ability to either do the boundary line adjustment and break up that new commercial sub that was created just moments ago that way, or they have the ability to come forward with future final maps to create these what we call these hard lines, where they have to then meet all their development requirements. The boundary line adjustment is, again, an administrative process that doesn't provide a development lot. It creates a financial lot for assessment, for taxes, for transfer of property. What it does not do is it does not create a development lot where setbacks and parking and access and all those things that planning and public works cares about and affects the way uses interact. It does not create that. It's a financial mechanism only when they do it that way.
So in this particular case, there would be no reason for that fee interest parcel to do a separate parcel map. There would be no reason for them to do that, right?
There would be no reason. They could move forward if in order to address some of these concerns, if this applicant were to work with them on creating that mapping action. However, I can tell you that because the way that building was developed, it would never be approved as a parcel map. It would have to come forward and have a number of variances because the lines, those that were on the map that were shown, they do not correspond to a developable parcel. The building that has been developed on that parcel would not achieve your other development standards and therefore would require a number of other approvals in order to have a true mapping action on it, such as a parcel map or subdivision map.
Okay, so I understand it now. So we can't, I mean, from my standpoint, we can't grant the waiver based on the way it's written. But it does cause problems for the future where we need to maybe look at changing the ordinance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and
All right.
are you at a point, though, Councilman, then, based on that, I mean, because you just brought to me where I can understand, too, what the issue really is, the period and the word and, I mean, that it's very clear, to charge staff to bring back more information to be addressed by council and perhaps make the necessary adjustments.
And Madam Mayor, we already are working on the access issue question from the last meeting, and we are looking at this issue more diligently so that we can bring forward a policy discussion to the council members so that a decision, because as you said, 25 years ago, the council made the decision to measure property this way, but before that, it was measured a different way. So we are doing that research now, and we'll be bringing forth at future briefings to the council on potential options to change that and areas where we can streamline and provide greater clarity within the existing structure if that's the direction that council wants to go.
Well, and to me, that seems reasonable, because as we are approached for applications for whatever that are judged by these property lines, it's an open door, and we'll have applications and applications because the precedent that we're setting, because we're taking and making exceptions to what is. And so the word and or become significant from the legal standpoint, which clarifies for me. So you're already in that process to address what Councilman Anthony has just clarified?
Correct, ma'am. We're doing the research, and we'll be bringing back that information so that council can provide, if there is a change in direction from what current code says, then we will be able to make those modifications based on that research.
Can you do it before this council disintegrates?
Unfortunately, ma'am, I cannot do it before the current council is dissolved. So we will be working very diligently to educate the new council members after the July swearing in to make sure that the full council is informed on this issue.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I am ready to make a motion, if anybody wants it, from the lame duck.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
The lame duck is here. First of all, to clarify with my colleague, Councilman Coffin, the reason, and you mentioned it, Brad, the reason why we had that distance and we said were the children's activities, we didn't say dance studio or anything, was because the majority of the membership at that karate studio was children. It was very close. And in this dance studio, what it also happens is that the majority are are below 18 in this studio that we're talking about. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. Right now, and I told Mr. Grounauer that I understood what he was saying, but I would have to depend on what legal told us. And legal is telling us that because of an and or not an and, or a comma or not a comma, that we cannot approve this at this point. So I then asked him if he might want to obey it until something different was made. And if whatever, and you and I agreed that whatever was said by legal today would be what we would go on. And at the time, neither of us knew exactly what legal was going to say. So legal is saying that we,
Table. Okay. So we'll bring it back simultaneously. Yeah.
What
What I've recommended, Mr. Grounauer, is that if he wants to not have it heard now, but have it heard when the amendment comes back, don't obey it because we don't know what date that's going to be. Just table it, and staff will bring it back simultaneously with the amendment.
so then my move would be to table it until the applicant finds when any new text changes are made.
And I'm in agreement after advice of my counsel. I'm good. I'm kidding.
Oh, well, you always
I
have
just-
another job, see there?
I just feel we should do this legally, and then you do it without hurting your applicant.
Yep.
And we're doing, or at least we might do what
Great.
our legal is telling us. So that's my motion there.
Thank you. Thank you both, and thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Jerbick. Really, clarification's always great.
I just want to say to Mr. Grounauer that his client, Mr. Black, was my client at one point in time when he was a planning commissioner. He was affectionately known as Dr. Density. So if he's watching TV right now, I want to say hi to Mr.
Oh,
Black. So-
if he is, hi. Thanks
Thank you.
for,
Have a good day.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and post, Councilwoman, did you push yours? Yeah. And that motion carries that it is tabled. Thank you very much, Mr. Summerfield. We're on to 83, set the date on any appeals filed or required public hearings. I would instruct the city clerk, look at that, by 1:02.
Thank
To set
you.
the public hearing dates and appeals. Thank you very much. So no announcements, and you don't want to take your natter butter? Batter? Don't you want to take your nourishment for the ride? Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 84, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the city council. No subject may be acted upon by city council unless the subject's on the agenda scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the podium, give your name for the record, the amount of discussion, any single subject, amount of time any single speakers allowed will be limited. This is your opportunity again to address the council, but the council will not respond or engage in dialogue. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak under this portion of the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to agenda item 85, and council member recognition. Comments made by individual city council members during this portion of the agenda will not be acted upon by the city council unless the subject's on the agenda scheduled for action. Any member of city council who wishes to speak under this portion of the agenda, I'm going to give it to Mayor Pro Tem. You get one more early out, you and Councilman Coffin, so go first.
I was going to say for Councilman Coffin that, old council members never die, they just fade away.
Yeah.
Is what they do, just like MacArthur. All right, first of all, the Southern Nevada Health District, located in Ward 1 at 280 South Decatur Boulevard, is offering no-cost, free vaccines tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at their main office, which, as I stated, was 280 South Decatur Boulevard. Residents must be aged 10 to 19 and going to college, entering the 7th grade, or beginning a new job. Vaccines are available on a first-come, first-served basis. Residents must also be VFC-317 eligible, uninsured, or underinsured. And for more information, please call 775-624-7117. The City of Las Vegas Planning Department is nearing the end of its initial public outreach phase for the Las Vegas 2050 Master Plan. The master plan will guide our city's development and redevelopment for the next 30 years, but residents still have an opportunity to participate in interactive exercises and to vote for their top priorities for the future of our great city. The next open house in Ward 1 is taking place next Wednesday, June 12th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Mirabelli Community Center located at 6200 Hargrove Avenue. And each year, the Las Vegas Senior Idol Showcase features entertainment by amateur and professional performers between the ages of 56 and 89 years of age. We might be qualifying for that. Solo and group performances reflect the diversity of the city in song, dance, music, and comedy. And really, it's very enjoyable to watch, and it's amazing some of the great performances our seniors can put on. So this 16th annual Las Vegas Senior Idol Showcase is taking place Thursday, June 20th at 1 p.m. at the Charleston Heights Arts Center located at 800 South Brush Street. Residents of all ages can purchase tickets for $5 each at any of the senior centers within the city's jurisdiction. And that, I just want to say, it's very interesting leading a group such as this, because I realize how magnificent our people are that stay late for us. Number one, you've mentioned that before. And secondly, how really brilliant some of our people are in planning and public works and everything else, and how wonderful it's been to learn from them. And that's all, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, Councilwoman Fiore.
We're going to have a lot of fun this weekend. We have our Movies in the Park on Friday night. And so How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, that's going to start at about 7:30 p.m. over at our Centennial Hills Amphitheater Park. And I hope to see you guys there. You get free popcorn and water as supplies last. So from Friday night's movie night, then we are going to go fishing in the morning. So meet me at 7:30 a.m. over at Floyd Lamb Park in Tule Springs. We're going to have lots of prizes and fishing poles and lots of fish, and it's going to be really, really great. We always have contests of the biggest fish, the smallest fish. Our fishing derbies are really a lot of fun. I am very happy to let you know that Rose Enos, a 14-year-old female, was found and located. That's very exciting. However, we are looking for today Razor Soto, and he's only 15 years old. He's a male. He's 5'9", about 160 pounds, brown hair, black curly hair. He's African-American and Puerto Rican. So please, if you see Razor, please call Metro or North Las Vegas Police and Nevada Child Seekers. Also, we are looking for Christina Duran. She's 16, she's a female, she's about 5'10", 160 pounds. She's Hispanic, she's got brown eyes and brown hair. Again, if you see Christina, please call Las Vegas Metro Police or Nevada Child Seekers. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you on the 19th.
Thank you. And Councilman Creer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Elder Abuse Awareness and Resources Fair is going to be Saturday, June 8th. This event is in response to the estimated 5 million older adults who are abused, neglected, or exploited each year. An estimated $2.6 billion or more annually is lost by older Americans due to elder financial abuse. Learn about this and more at the Elder Abuse Awareness and Resource Fair taking place at the Doolittle Community Center, 1940 J Street on Saturday, June 8th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And for more information or to RSVP, contact Gregory Gray at 702-229-6690. The Las Vegas 2019 9th Annual Juneteenth Jazz, Arts, and Spoken Word Celebration. This event will take place on Saturday, June 15th from 11:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. at the West Las Vegas Library, 951 Lake Mead Boulevard. There will be a culture and history lecture followed by a Q&A session. There will be African dance and a Pioneer Award ceremony. This is a free family event open to the public. For more information, call 702-507-3989. Rainbow Dreams presents the 19th Annual Las Vegas Juneteenth Festival. Rainbow Dreams Educational Foundation presents the 19th Annual Las Vegas Juneteenth Festival. This event will take place at the Kayaga Asoki Palacio Park, Doolittle Park, on Wednesday, June 19th from 6 to 9 p.m. Juneteenth is an American cultural celebration. Juneteenth is a celebration of the contributions of the diverse African traditions that enrich American culture. This is a family event and open to the public. For more information, visit www.june19lv.com. The Bolden Community Coalition is Thursday, June 20th, so join Bolden Area Command for their next coalition meeting on Thursday, June 20th at 10 a.m. at the A.D. Guy Knowledge Center, 817 N Street. If you have an agenda item, RSVP by visiting 015917L at lvmpd.com. And we're having our coffee with the councilman Thursday, June 27th. I will not be holding the Crias Community Conversation at Tenaya Creek Brewery June through August, but join me on next Thursday, June 27th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for a cup of coffee and conversation about matters important to you. Residents and businesses are welcome. For more information, contact my office at 702-229-5443. You can always stay in touch with us at Twitter at Cedric Creer, Instagram Councilman Creer, and then Facebook Councilman Cedric Creer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next meeting is Wednesday, June 19th, so that fabulous day that's being celebrated everywhere. And also to remind you all, please get out and vote. We in the city, elections are current, still early voting. That concludes when? Tomorrow is the last day for early voting, so when is it? Friday? Friday is the last day of early vote, and then, of course, the 11th. So please get out, do your responsible effort. And as I say, I want to thank always, as Mayor Pro Tem and all of us do up here, we thank our staff, we thank our IT department and everybody that's working and keeping us current and keeping all these machines working, our leadership and our staff, and certainly our marshals and security. So until then, we're back up in the heat, so take care, make sure you drink a lot, be safe, drive safely, and watch the HOV lanes. We're in June. Goodbye. Thanks for watching and being with us.